Maya Park's phone glowed in the darkness of her studio apartment at 2:47 a.m., casting blue light across her face as she squinted at the screen. She'd been lying awake for 3 hours now, scrolling through social media, watching the minutes tick by, waiting for exhaustion that never came. Insomnia was her constant companion, had been since childhood, turning her into a creature of the night, whether she wanted to be or not. Her friends called her weird. Her ex-boyfriend had called her a vampire, and not in an affectionate way. But tonight, lying in her too small bed in her too expensive apartment, Maya felt that familiar restlessness that made her want to reach out, to connect, to prove she wasn't completely alone in the small hours of the morning. She pulled up her messages and started typing to her best friend Jamie, her thumbs flying across the screen. OMG, Jamie, you will not believe what happened at work today. Brad from accounting wore the same shirt as me again. I'm convinced he's either into me or stealing my laundry. She hit send without checking the contact name, then tossed her phone onto the blanket and stared at the ceiling, watching shadows from the street lamp outside dance across the plaster. Across the city, in a sprawling Gothic estate that sat on 20 acres of carefully maintained grounds outside Seattle, King Caspian Thorne sat in his private library, surrounded by the smell of old leather and ancient paper. Candlelight flickered across first editions that dated back centuries, some of which he'd purchased new when they were published. He was reading Chaucer, the actual first edition from 1478, not a reproduction, when his phone buzzed on the mahogany desk beside him. The sound was jarring in the silence, unexpected enough that he actually flinched. In 3 years of carrying the cursed device, he'd received exactly 47 messages, all of them official council business or emergency alerts. Personal communication was not something that happened to him, not anymore, not in this digital age that felt more isolating than the centuries before it. He picked up the phone with the careful precision of someone handling an unfamiliar weapon and squinted at the screen. An unknown number, a message about accounting and laundry and someone named Brad. Caspian read it 3 times, trying to determine if this was some kind of code, some new security protocol Marcus had implemented without telling him. But no, the message was too mundane, too human, too genuine in its trivial concern. This was simply a wrong number, a mistake, a random human reaching out into the void and finding him instead of whoever Jamie was supposed to be. He should ignore it. That would be the sensible thing, the kingly thing, the thing that maintained appropriate distance between his world and the human one. But something about the message charmed him, perhaps the earnestness of it, or perhaps just the novelty of being contacted by someone who had no idea who or what he was. He carefully typed with one finger, hunting and pecking across the keyboard like he was disarming a bomb. I believe you have contacted the incorrect individual. I am not Jamie. However, I hope your workplace situation resolves favorably. He set the phone down, proud of himself for navigating modern communication successfully, and returned to his book. The phone buzzed again almost immediately. Oh God, I'm so sorry, wrong number. But thanks for being nice about it, LOL. Most people don't even respond. Caspian picked up the phone again, studying the message. Most people don't respond. Something about that felt sad to him, the idea that reaching out met with silence more often than acknowledgement. He typed again, more quickly this time, finding the rhythm of the keyboard. It was no trouble. I hope you have a pleasant evening. That should be the end of it. He'd been polite, appropriate, and could return to his regularly scheduled existence of reading books and attending interminable council meetings and pretending that immortality wasn't just an extended exercise in waiting for something, anything, to feel meaningful again. He opened his book, found his place, and read exactly 3 sentences before the phone buzzed a 3rd time. Thanks, wrong number guy. You're sweet. I'm Maya, by the way. Night owl too? Caspian stared at the message for a full minute. This human, Maya, was continuing the conversation. with a stranger. At nearly 3 in the morning. He should definitely ignore this one. Let the exchange die naturally. Maintain the boundaries that kept his world and the human world safely separate. His finger hovered over the lock button. Then, moving almost of its own accord, his hand shifted and he began typing instead. Caspian. And yes, I suppose you could say I keep unusual hours. I'm rarely awake during daylight. The response came within seconds. Caspian? That's such a cool name. Like the sea. I love it. I'm the same way, total night person. My friends think I'm so weird, but I just function better when it's dark out, you know? Something in Caspian's chest tightened, an echo of the heartbeat he hadn't had in 891 years. She functioned better in darkness. She was a creature of the night by choice, by nature, by the same inexplicable pull that had defined his existence before he'd even been turned. I understand completely. There's a particular quality to nighttime that daylight lacks. A peace, perhaps, or simply fewer demands on one's attention. Yes, exactly. Oh my God, no one ever gets it. They're always like, just fix your sleep schedule, but it's not about sleep. It's about when I feel most alive. When I feel most alive. Caspian read those words 3 times, feeling something shift in the eternal stillness that was his existence. When did he last feel alive? 1823? 1647? Sometime before the world became too familiar, before he'd seen the same patterns repeat enough times that existence became prediction rather than experience. He realized he'd been staring at the screen for too long and typed quickly. I find I do my best thinking at night, and my best reading. What keeps you awake? Besides incompetent colleagues who apparently have a laundry-related obsession. Maya's response came with a laughing emoji that Caspian had to Google to understand. Haha, Brad's actually pretty harmless. I work in social media management. Basically, I get paid to be on my phone all day, which is perfect for an insomniac. But it's also super fake, you know? I'm selling this lifestyle brand dream that I don't even believe in. I went to school for creative writing. I wanted to write actual stories. Instead, I write captions about activewear. The bitterness in that message was palpable even through the digital medium. Caspian found himself wanting to respond thoughtfully, wanting to say something that mattered. The distance between our aspirations and our realities can be painful. But creative writing and social media aren't entirely disparate skills. Both require understanding human nature and crafting compelling narratives. Perhaps you're building skills that will serve your true passion. Wow, that's actually really insightful. Are you a therapist or something? Nothing so noble. I manage historical properties and collections. It's perhaps not what I would have chosen, but it's the responsibility I inherited. Sounds kind of lonely? Like, are you in a big empty museum all night by yourself? Caspian looked around his library, at the thousands of books he'd collected over centuries, at the paintings on the walls by artists long dead, at the artifacts from civilizations that had risen and fallen while he remained unchanged. Sometimes it feels that way, yes. Well, now you have a random stranger to text with at 3 a.m. If you want, I mean. No pressure. I know I'm being weird. Caspian typed before he could reconsider. I don't find you weird at all, Maya. And I would welcome the company, actually, if you're genuinely offering. Deal. Fair warning, though. I send a lot of memes and I'm going to complain about Brad constantly. I don't know what memes are, but I'm willing to learn. There was a longer pause before the next message, and Caspian wondered if he'd revealed too much, if his unfamiliarity with modern culture had exposed the vast gulf between them. Then his phone buzzed. Okay, that's adorable. You're like a grandpa and it's weirdly charming. I'm definitely going to educate you on meme culture. This is my new mission in life. In his library, surrounded by the accumulated knowledge of nearly 9 centuries, King Caspian Thorn, ancient vampire, territorial ruler, member of the Global Vampire Council, smiled at his phone for the first time in living memory. I look forward to my education. They texted until dawn, until Maya finally admitted she should probably try to sleep before her workday started, and Caspian could feel the sun rising beyond his blackout, curtains like a pressure against his skin. He bid her good night, good morning, technically, and sat in his library holding his phone like it was something precious, something fragile, something that had just cracked open the monotony of immortality and let in a sliver of light. The next night, Caspian found himself checking his phone every few minutes starting at midnight, then chastising himself for the behavior, then checking again. He was in his study reviewing territorial dispute documents that should have had his full attention when the phone finally buzzed at 1:34 a.m. "Hey, wrong number, guy. How's your night going?" The relief that flooded through him was disproportionate to the situation. She'd texted again. She'd remembered him. She'd wanted to continue this strange connection they'd stumbled into. "Adequately, thank you for inquiring. How is your situation with Brad from accounting?" "OMG, you remembered? He brought me coffee today, like my exact order, oat milk latte with vanilla. I think he is into me, but he's being all mysterious about it. Boys are so confusing." Has Brad indicated his intentions clearly? It seems inefficient to pursue someone without direct communication. Right? That's what I said. But my coworker thinks the mystery is romantic. I think it's just anxiety-inducing. Are you always this logical about everything? Caspian considered the question. I've found that direct communication prevents significant misunderstanding and heartache, though I confess my own experience with romance is outdated. Outdated how? Like you haven't dated in a while? Something like that. My last serious relationship ended in 1823. There was a pause, then. That's a joke, right? Please tell me you're making a joke about being old. Caspian realized his mistake immediately. My apologies. I have an unusual sense of humor. I meant to say it's been quite some time. Okay, you scared me for a second. 1823 would make you like 200 years old. Indeed, that would be quite remarkable. Closer to 900, actually, but who was counting? Their conversation flowed from Brad's romantic incompetence to Maya's frustrations with her job to Caspian's careful descriptions of his work managing historical estates and archival collections. He found himself editing his life into human-appropriate anecdotes, turning vampire political disputes into property line disagreements, turning council meetings into board meetings, turning centuries of loneliness into the general isolation of leadership positions. Maya sent him his first meme around 2:15 a.m., the distracted boyfriend image with some text he didn't understand at all. I don't understand this image. Why is the man looking at a different woman while his companion is upset? This seems disrespectful. Oh my God, okay, so it's a meme. It's like a joke format? The image represents being distracted by something new when you should be paying attention to what you have. Like, you have something, good, but you're looking at something shiny instead. Have you seriously never seen this? I don't engage with much modern media. I prefer books. What kind of books? Please don't say business management books. Currently, I'm reading Chaucer. Before that was Dante. I have a particular fondness for medieval literature and Renaissance poetry. Okay, that's actually really cool. I minored in classical literature. Do you have the Canterbury Tales? First edition, 1478. What? Those are worth a fortune. How do you even have access to something like that? Extensive personal collection. I've been acquiring books for quite some time. You're like a mysterious librarian vampire or something. Wait, are you hot? You sound like you'd be hot in that librarian way. Dark hair, reading glasses, probably a turtleneck? Caspian looked down at himself. Black shirt, no turtleneck, no glasses needed due to enhanced vampire vision, dark hair that had been dark since 1134. I don't own any turtlenecks, should I? The fact that you're taking that question seriously is hilarious. Okay, mystery librarian man, what should I read? Give me your best recommendation. He spent the next 20 minutes describing his favorite books, diving deep into medieval poetry and Gothic literature, surprised by how engaged she was, how she asked intelligent questions and made connections he hadn't considered. When she mentioned she loved Mary Shelley, he nearly told her he'd met Shelley once in 1818, caught himself just in time, and instead recommended some lesser-known Gothic novels from his collection. You're officially my new favorite person to talk to. My friends think I'm weird for liking old books, but you get it. Something in Caspian's chest ached. I'm honored. Though I'm certain your friends appreciate you, even if your tastes diverge from theirs. You're sweet. Okay, I should actually try to sleep now. It's almost 4 a.m. and I have a meeting at noon. Text you tomorrow? I'll look forward to it. And he did. For the first time in centuries, Caspian found himself anticipating something, looking forward to the next night, feeling a pull toward the future, instead of just existing in an eternal present. He made it through exactly one council meeting the next evening before Marcus noticed something was different. Your Majesty, his chief of security said carefully, watching Caspian check his phone for the third time during a territorial report. Is there a security concern we should address? No. Why? You've looked at your phone more in the last hour than in the previous 3 years combined. Lady Morgana, who appeared 35 but had actually been alive since the time of Charlemagne, leaned forward with interest. Caspian, darling, are you expecting an important message? No, perhaps. It's not council business. The room went silent. Caspian never had non-council business. His entire existence was duty, responsibility, and obligation. Lord Silas, appearing 40, but actually predating Morgana by a few decades, raised an eyebrow. Personal business? How intriguing. Do tell. There's nothing to tell. I've simply been engaging in modern communication, as mandated by the Council's technology integration requirements. Marcus pulled out his own phone, clearly accessing some kind of monitoring data. His eyes widened. Your Majesty, you've sent 1,247 text messages in the past 6 weeks. Previously, your monthly average was 0. All messages are to a single number. Same person, repeatedly, every night, for hours. The council stared. Caspian felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Embarrassment. Morgana's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. Caspian, have you been compromised? Is someone blackmailing you? Because don't be absurd. I'm simply communicating with someone. It's entirely voluntary. Who? Silas demanded. A security asset? An informant? Another vampire? Caspian's jaw tightened. A friend. The word hung in the air like a confession. Caspian didn't have friends. He had subjects, allies, and council members. He had people who needed things from him, and people who served him, and people who attended his mandatory political functions. But friends? That was a human luxury he'd given up centuries ago. Morgana's voice softened. A human friend? That's none of your concern. Your Majesty, Marcus said carefully. Emotional attachments to humans are dangerous. You know the laws. If you're developing feelings, I'm not developing anything. We simply text about books and her difficult colleague and completely mundane matters. It's harmless. You've smiled at your phone 3 times during this meeting, Marcus said quietly. I've served you for 200 years. I've never seen you smile at anything. Caspian stood abruptly. This meeting is adjourned. We'll resume tomorrow. He left before anyone could object, retreating to his library where he could check his phone in peace. Maya had sent him a meme, something about Monday mornings that he didn't quite understand, and a message. Hope you're having a good night. Brad update. He asked if I like Italian food. I think he's working up to asking me out, but he's taking forever. How's your night? Caspian typed quickly, aware that his hands were steadier when communicating with her than when facing his entire council. My night has been trying. Difficult meetings with obstinate colleagues who don't understand boundaries. I'm much happier now that I'm talking to you. Her response was immediate. Aw, that's sweet. Want to complain about your coworkers? I'm an expert in work drama. And so he did, carefully translating vampire politics into human office dynamics, describing Silas's territorial power plays as boardroom manipulation, describing Morgana's well-meaning concern as HR overreach, describing Marcus's surveillance as IT monitoring. Maya responded with empathy and humor and surprisingly astute observations about leadership and loneliness that made Caspian wonder if she somehow knew more than she should. You sound really isolated, she typed at one point. Like, I know you're in charge of stuff and that's a lot of responsibility, but do you have anyone you can just be with? Like not work-related, just friends? Not really. My position makes genuine connection difficult. That sounds lonely. I'm sorry. It's simply the reality of my circumstances. I accepted this long ago. Well, for what it's worth, you have me now. Random wrong number girl who sends you memes you don't understand and complains about Brad. But I mean it. You can talk to me about anything. Caspian stared at those words for a long time, feeling something crack in the careful walls he'd built around himself over centuries. Thank you, Maya. You have no idea how much that means to me. Over the next month, their texts became the center of Caspian's existence. He found himself structuring his nights around her schedule, making sure he was available between 1 and 3 a.m. when she was most active. He read articles about meme culture and contemporary slang, taking actual handwritten notes in a leather journal he labeled Modern Human Communication, 21st Century. When she used the word extra, he spent 30 minutes researching its current usage as slang before writing, extra equals excessive behavior. Deployment appears to be affectionate rather than critical. She taught him abbreviations, LOL, OMG, TBH. He taught her about medieval literature and sent her photos of first editions from his collection, carefully cropping out anything that might reveal too much about his estate or circumstances. She sent him playlists of modern music. He found himself lying on his library floor at 2 a.m. listening to Taylor Swift and trying to understand why humans found these songs meaningful, eventually concluding that vulnerability and specificity were perhaps universal across centuries. Okay, real talk, Maya texted one night in their second month of communication. Can I tell you something weird? Of course. I enjoy our conversations specifically because you're willing to be genuine. I have insomnia because I actually hate daylight. I know that sounds crazy. Like, I know sunshine is supposed to be healthy and everyone loves summer, but I've always felt more alive at night. My ex said I was basically a vampire, like it was an insult. My friends think I'm weird. But darkness feels like home to me, you know? Caspian's hands trembled as he typed. If his heart could still beat, it would be hammering. This human woman, this random wrong number, this impossible connection. She loved darkness the way he was forced to exist in it. She chose the night while he was condemned to it. She was describing his existence as her preference, her comfort, her truth. That's not weird at all, Maya. The night has a particular beauty that daylight lacks. You're not strange. You're simply attuned to different rhythms than most people. There's nothing wrong with you. You're exactly as you should be. See, this is why I like talking to you. You don't make me feel broken. Caspian read that message 10 times. She liked talking to him. She didn't feel broken with him. He, an actual monster who drank blood and couldn't walk in sunlight, made this bright, creative, genuine human feel accepted. The irony was almost painful. You're not broken. You're remarkable. Please don't let anyone convince you otherwise. By the third month, the council noticed the escalation. Marcus reported with barely concealed concern. Your Majesty, our monitoring shows you've now sent nearly 4,000 text messages, all to the same number. And you've searched the following terms on your phone. What is a mood? Taylor Swift explained. How to use emojis, and is it weird to develop feelings for someone you've never met? Silas looked alarmed. You searched what? That's a violation of privacy, Caspian snapped, knowing he was deflecting. Your phone is connected to our security network, Marcus said apologetically. I'm not trying to invade your privacy, sire. I'm trying to understand if this is a threat. She's not a threat. She? Morgana leaned forward. It's definitely a human woman then? Caspian, are you falling for someone? I'm not falling for anyone. We're friends. We text about mundane things. Nearly 4,000 messages about mundane things? We have a lot to discuss. Silas stood, his expression darkening. This is unacceptable. Emotional attachments to humans are explicitly dangerous. They age, we don't. They're fragile, we're not. They ask questions we can't answer. You know this. You've written half the laws about human-vampire interaction yourself. I'm aware of the laws. Then you know this ends badly. Either you watch her age and die, or you expose yourself and risk everything. Or you turn her and face council judgment for unauthorized conversion. There's no scenario where this works. Caspian stood, his voice dropping to a tone that made even Silas step back. I am 891 years old. I have ruled this territory for 6 centuries. I have endured plagues, wars, revolutions, and the endless grinding monotony of immortality with perfect composure. For 300 years, I have existed rather than lived. And then a human woman accidentally sent me a text message about her colleagues' laundry habits, and for the first time in longer than I can remember, I want to wake up each night. She makes me laugh. She challenges my thinking. She shares her fears and dreams with me. She treats me like a person instead of a position. So yes, this might end badly. But I will not walk away from the first meaningful connection I've had in centuries, simply because it's complicated. The council sat in stunned silence. Morgana's expression had softened into something that looked almost like sympathy. What's her name? Maya. Maya Park. She's 27. She works in social media but wants to be a writer. She loves Gothic literature and hates mornings, and feels most alive at night. She's kind and funny, and remarkably patient with me when I don't understand modern references. And yes, I'm aware that I sound like a lovesick fool. Your concern is noted and dismissed. This meeting is adjourned. He left before anyone could respond, returning to his estate where his phone was already buzzing with a new message. Caspian, guess what? Brad finally asked me out. We're getting Italian food tomorrow night. I'm actually kind of nervous. What if we have nothing to talk about in person? Texting someone and actually dating them are totally different things. Something cold settled in Caspian's stomach. Brad had asked her out. Brad, the human man who could take her to dinner in daylight, who could be photographed with her, who could give her a normal relationship without secrets or complications or the constant threat of exposure. Brad, who was probably mediocre and boring, but at least was actually available. He typed carefully. That's wonderful news. I hope your date goes well. Brad is very fortunate. You're sweet. I'll tell you how it goes. Wish me luck. Good luck, Maya. You deserve happiness. He set down his phone and sat in the darkness of his library, surrounded by the accumulated treasures of 9 centuries, feeling more alone than he had before a wrong number text message had briefly illuminated his existence. The next night, Caspian waited for Maya's usual text time. telling himself he wasn't anxious, that he didn't care about her date with Brad, that he had no claim on her attention or affection. At 1:47 a.m., his phone finally buzzed. Okay, so the date happened. Want the full debrief? Only if you wish to share. How was it? Honestly, kind of disappointing. Brad is nice, but we had nothing to talk about. Like, he doesn't read, he's never heard of any of the bands I like, and when I mentioned I love nighttime, he looked at me like I was insane. He kept talking about hiking at sunrise, and I was like, that sounds like literal torture. We have zero in common. Relief flooded through Caspian so intensely he had to set down the phone for a moment. I'm sorry it wasn't what you'd hoped. Though I confess, I'm not entirely surprised. You mentioned he took weeks to simply ask you to dinner. That doesn't suggest particularly compatible communication styles. Right? That's what I thought. Ugh, I'm just so tired of trying to date people who don't get me. Like, is it really that hard to find someone who likes books and darkness and staying up until 4 a.m. talking about life? It shouldn't be. Those are perfectly reasonable preferences. Says the guy who literally lives in what sounds like a Gothic mansion and reads medieval poetry by candlelight. It's not a mansion. It's simply a large estate with extensive grounds and original architecture from 1834. Caspian, that's literally a mansion. Oh my God, are you rich? Are you, like, secretly a billionaire? I have significant resources, yes, accumulated over time. This keeps getting better. You're a hot, mysterious librarian billionaire who lives in a mansion and reads Chaucer by candlelight. You're like a romance novel character. I'm not certain I'm hot. That seems presumptuous. I'm dying. The fact that you're responding seriously to that is the funniest thing. Okay, I have a question, and you can totally say no, but do you want a video call sometime? Like, I want to see the face behind all these fancy words. Terror. Actual terror. Something Caspian hadn't felt since facing enemy armies in the Crusades. I'm not particularly photogenic. Oh, come on. I bet you're fine. Just a quick call? I want to see if you really do look like a romance novel character. He couldn't refuse without being suspicious. And if he was honest with himself, he wanted to see her too. Wanted to watch her expressions as she talked. Wanted to make this connection feel more real. Very well. But I should warn you, the lighting in my study is poor. I prefer to work by candlelight, as you mentioned, and it's rather dim. That's so on brand for you. How's tomorrow night? Like 11 p.m.? That would be acceptable. Caspian spent the next 24 hours in preparation that bordered on panic. He positioned himself in his library with a single candle, arranging the camera angle so the lighting was atmospheric but terrible, ensuring no mirrors were visible, no windows showing the darkness outside, nothing that might reveal too much. He wore a simple black sweater, the most modern clothing he owned, and practiced looking casual approximately 40 times before giving up and accepting he would look exactly like what he was, ancient and uncomfortable. At 11 p.m. exactly, his phone rang with a video call. He answered, keeping the camera angled carefully. Maya's face filled his screen, and Caspian forgot to breathe. Not that he needed to, but the automatic response kicked in anyway. She was beautiful in a way that transcended the physical, all bright eyes and genuine smile and energy that radiated even through the digital connection. She looked younger than 27, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun, wearing an oversized sweatshirt, sitting in what appeared to be a small, book-filled apartment. Oh my God, you actually answered. I half thought you'd bail. Wait, why is it so dark? I can barely see you. Caspian adjusted his position slightly, still keeping most of his face in shadow. Apologies, the lighting in my study is poor. I prefer candlelight, as I mentioned. Turn on a lamp or something. I want to actually see you. I find electric lighting harsh. This is easier on my eyes. Maya squinted at her screen, leaning closer. Okay, I can kind of see you. You look really young? I thought you'd be older from the way you text. Like, I was expecting a 50-year-old professor type, but you look like you're maybe 30? I've been told I have a youthful appearance. 29 forever, actually. Frozen at the age he'd been turned in 1134. Well, from what I can see in this terrible lighting, you're definitely hot. Called it. Very gothic romance hero. Can I see your library? Show me these first editions you're always talking about. For the next hour, Caspian relaxed incrementally, showing her carefully selected books, listening to her talk about her apartment and her cat Sir Whiskers and her wall of contemporary novels. She showed him her creative writing notebooks, reading him a paragraph from a short story she was working on, something about loneliness and connection that hit far too close to home. He kept the camera angled away from anything revealing, but found himself genuinely enjoying this, the sound of her voice, the animation in her expressions, the way she got excited about books and ideas. You're really mysterious, you know that? Maya said eventually, studying her screen with an intensity that made Caspian nervous. Like, in a hot way, but also kind of suspicious. You're not in witness protection or anything, right? Nothing quite so dramatic. I simply value my privacy. Fair enough. But seriously, Mr. Mysterious Librarian, when are we going to meet in person? We've been talking for like 3 months now. I want to have coffee with you, see your mansion, meet you for real. Caspian's mind raced. My schedule is quite restrictive. I work unusual hours, as I mentioned. Okay, so we meet at night. There's this great coffee place that's open until midnight. Or we could do dinner somewhere. I'm super flexible. I have a condition that makes daytime meetings impossible. Severe photosensitivity. Sunlight is genuinely dangerous for me. Maya's expression immediately shifted to concern. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to be insensitive. That must be really difficult. I've learned to manage. But yes, any meeting would need to be late evening or nighttime. That's totally fine. Actually perfect for me. There's a 24-hour diner downtown, Mel's Diner. We could meet there at like midnight? That way it's super late and definitely dark and no sunlight risk. Midnight would be perfect. Okay, let's do it. This Saturday? Oh man, I'm actually nervous now. What if I'm totally different in person? What if we have nothing to talk about like me and Brad? I don't think that's possible, Maya. We've had 3 months of compelling conversation. I'm certain we'll be fine. After the call ended, Caspian sat in his library holding his phone and contemplating the enormity of what he'd just agreed to. He was going to meet a human woman in person. A human woman he'd been texting for 3 months. A human woman who had no idea he was a 891-year-old vampire who ruled a significant portion of the western United States vampire population. A human woman who made him feel alive for the first time in centuries. This was absolutely going to be a disaster. Marcus found him 2 hours later, still sitting in the dark. Sire, are you all right? I've agreed to meet her, in person, Saturday at midnight. Marcus was silent for a long moment. I see. Does she know what you are? Of course not. She thinks I have a photosensitivity condition. And when she orders garlic bread, or notices you're not eating, or asks why your reflection looks strange in the diner windows? I'll manage. Your Majesty, with all due respect, this is insane. What's your endgame here? You can't sustain a relationship with a human without either exposing yourself or lying indefinitely. Both options end badly. I'm aware of that, Marcus, but I'm going to try anyway. Because you're in love with her. Caspian looked up at his chief of security, this vampire who'd served him for 2 centuries, who'd fought beside him in a dozen wars, who knew him better than almost anyone. Yes, I believe I am. Which is ridiculous and dangerous and against every rule of self-preservation I've followed for 9 centuries. But there it is. Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. Then we need to prepare. Strategically. If you're determined to do this, let's at least minimize the risks. Over the next 2 days, Caspian's estate descended into organized chaos. Lady Morgana arrived uninvited, sweeping through his bedroom with a critical eye. Caspian, darling, we need to discuss your wardrobe. When was the last time you purchased clothing? 1987? My clothing is perfectly adequate. For attending a council meeting, perhaps? For meeting the human woman you're in love with? Absolutely not. You're wearing jeans and a sweater, fitted, modern. We're going shopping. I'm not going shopping. Then I'm bringing shopping to you. Marcus, call that boutique that owes us a favor. Have them send selections. Dark colors, nothing too formal, nothing that screams, I'm an ancient vampire trying to dress like a human. Caspian sat in his library, head in his hands. This is humiliating. This is love, darling. It's supposed to be humiliating. Morgana's expression softened. I know this is frightening. I lost someone I loved to time, to age, to the fundamental incompatibility of our natures. I understand what you're risking. But I also understand that rare, precious feeling of wanting to try anyway. So we're going to help you try. But while Caspian's household prepared, Lord Silas had other plans. 2 days before the scheduled meeting, Marcus burst into Caspian's study, holding his phone with an expression of fury. Sire, we have a situation. Silas has contacted Maya Park through a fake social media account. Ice flooded Caspian's veins. Show me. Marcus displayed the message thread. Silas, using a false profile with a random human's photos, had sent Maya a message. Be careful meeting strangers from the internet, especially ones who only operate at night. Not everyone is who they seem. Maya had responded politely. Thanks for the concern, but I'm good. Then Silas had escalated. Did you know the man you're texting owns a Gothic estate outside Seattle? His name is Caspian Thorne. Look him up. Public records show property ownership dating back to 1834. Same name, same property. That should be impossible, shouldn't it? If she Googles me, Caspian said quietly, his voice deadly calm, she'll find property records, my name in historical archives, the portrait from 1834 that somehow made it into the County Historical Society's collection. She'll see documentation of impossible continuity. The same name owning the same property for nearly 200 years. That alone will raise questions I can't easily answer. I've already locked down what I can, Marcus said, but some records are public. I can't erase them without drawing more attention. Where is Silas? Council chambers. He called an emergency meeting specifically to address your reckless behavior. Caspian stood, his expression colder than Marcus had seen in decades. Then let's not keep him waiting. The council chamber was an underground room beneath the estate, stone walls that had witnessed centuries of vampire politics, triumphs, betrayals, and judgments. When Caspian entered, Silas sat at the far end of the table with an expression of smug satisfaction. You contacted her, Caspian said without preamble. You violated direct sovereignty by interfering with my personal affairs. I'm protecting you from yourself. This human is a liability. She'll discover what you are, and then what? You'll have to kill her or turn her, and either option is a disaster. Killing her would destroy you. You're too emotionally invested. Turning her violates at least 8 council regulations without approval, genetic testing, psychological evaluation, and a 5-year observation period. You're painted into a corner, Caspian, and I'm trying to give you an exit before you do something catastrophic. That's not your decision to make. Lady Morgana entered behind Caspian, her expression severe. Silas, you overstepped. Contacting a human to interfere with another vampire's private matters is explicitly forbidden. You know the laws. I know the laws about human relationships too. They exist for good reasons. How many times have we seen this? Vampire falls for human, tries to make it work, ends up exposed or heartbroken or forced to turn someone who isn't ready. It ends badly every single time. Caspian's hands clenched on the table. She makes me feel alive. For the first time in 3 centuries, I look forward to waking each night. I think about something other than duty and obligation and the endless grinding monotony of existence. Do you understand what that means? Morgana's voice softened. I do. I lost someone I loved to time. The pain of that loss stayed with me for a century. But Silas isn't entirely wrong, Caspian. What's your plan here? She's mortal. You're not. Even if you navigate the immediate complications, eventually she'll age while you don't. She'll get sick. She'll die. You'll endure. That's not a future, it's a slow torture. Then I'll be tortured, but I won't walk away without trying. Silas stood. You're being selfish. You're thinking about your feelings instead of what's best for her. What happens when she realizes what you are? When she understands the reality of your existence? The violence you've committed, the people you've killed, the darkness you carry? You're not some romantic hero, Caspian. You're a predator, and eventually she'll see that. Something in Caspian's expression must have changed, because Marcus immediately stepped between him and Silas. Sire, he's trying to provoke you. Don't give him the satisfaction. Caspian took a breath he didn't need, forcing centuries of self-control to override the fury. This meeting is over, and Silas, if you contact Maya Park again, if you interfere in any way, I will interpret it as a direct challenge to my authority and respond accordingly. Are we clear? Perfectly. Caspian left, returning to his study where his phone was already buzzing with a message from Maya. So, someone sent me weird messages about you. Said your name is Caspian Thorne and you own some big estate outside Seattle. I Googled you. His hands went cold. What did you find? Property records going back to the 1800s. Same name, same address basically. And there's this portrait in the County Historical Society archives from 1834. The guy in it looks exactly like you from our video call. I also found newspaper mentions of a Caspian Thorne from 1892, 1923, and 1967, always described as the estate owner, always the same property. The Historical Society even has a note questioning whether it's a family name passed down or some kind of record-keeping error. What's going on, Caspian? He could lie. He could explain it away as coincidence, family resemblance, a legacy property passed through generations. He could maintain the fiction. But something in him rebelled at the idea of lying to her, of building their connection on deception. It's complicated, Maya, and I understand if this is too strange, but I promise you, I have never lied to you. Everything I've told you about myself is true. There are simply some things I haven't explained yet. Are you still meeting me tomorrow night? Or was this all some kind of weird catfish thing? I'll be there, at Mel's Diner, midnight tomorrow, and I'll explain everything. I promise you, I'm not a serial killer, I'm not trying to hurt you, and everything between us has been genuine. But you deserve the truth, and I'll give it to you. All of it. That's not creepy at all. You know what? Fine. Mel's Diner, midnight tomorrow. But if you're actually dangerous, I'm bringing pepper spray and my friend knows where I am. That's very sensible. I would never ask you to be less careful. Your safety matters to me. That's exactly what a serial killer would say. I assure you, I'm not a serial killer. Okay, midnight tomorrow. You're going to have a lot of explaining to do, mystery man. Caspian set down his phone and looked at Marcus, who'd followed him to the study. She's still coming. She Googled me, and she's still coming. That's either very brave or very foolish. It's brave. She's brave, which makes this even more complicated. What are you going to tell her? Caspian looked out the window at the darkness beyond, at the world he'd existed in for 9 centuries, at the beautiful, terrible truth of what he was. Everything, the whole truth. She deserves that much. And then she'll decide if she can accept it. And if she can't, then I'll compel her to forget me, ensure her safety, and return to my existence. But at least I'll know I tried. At least I'll have this one perfect moment of being honest with someone who matters. The next night, Caspian arrived at Mel's diner at 11:45 p.m., dressed in dark jeans and a sweater that Morgana had selected, looking as human as he could manage. The diner was a classic American establishment, red vinyl booths, checkered floors, a jukebox in the corner playing oldies. A handful of late-night patrons occupied scattered tables, night shift workers and insomniacs, and people with nowhere else to be in the small hours. He chose a corner booth with his back to the wall, centuries of warrior instincts never faded, and waited, checking his phone compulsively, wondering if she would actually show. At exactly midnight, the door opened and Maya walked in. She was shorter than he'd expected from the video call, maybe 5'4", wearing jeans and a vintage band t-shirt, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. She looked nervous and defiant in equal measure, scanning the diner until her eyes found his. Their gazes met, and Caspian felt something shift in his chest, some fundamental reorientation of his existence around this moment, this woman, this impossible connection. He stood, chivalry from 800 years ago demanding he rise, and watched her approach. "So," Maya said, stopping at the booth, "you're real. And you look exactly like your video call, except I can actually see you now in normal lighting. You're really good looking, which somehow makes this weirder. Please, sit. Thank you for coming despite the unusual circumstances." Maya slid into the booth across from him, studying his face with an intensity that would have made him uncomfortable if he weren't so desperately glad to be in her actual presence. "Let's address the elephant in the room. Who are you, really? Because property records say Caspian Thorne has owned that estate since 1834, but you look like you're 30. I can explain, but perhaps we should order first, to maintain appearances of normalcy?" The waitress approached, a tired woman in her 50s who'd clearly seen everything. Maya ordered coffee and garlic bread. Caspian ordered black coffee he had no intention of drinking. The food arrived quickly. Maya picked up her garlic bread and took a bite. And Caspian had an involuntary reaction he couldn't quite suppress. His face twitched, he turned his head slightly away, his breathing stopped. The smell of garlic was repellent to vampires, not lethal, but deeply unpleasant, triggering an instinctive aversion. Maya froze mid-bite. "Did you just react to my garlic bread?" "I have a sensitivity. The smell is strong." She set down the bread slowly, her eyes never leaving his face. "Caspian, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth, the real truth. I've never lied to you. Are you actually a vampire?" The diner hummed with normal human activity around them, the clink of dishes, the murmur of conversation, the hiss of the coffee machine. Caspian looked at this woman he'd come to care for, this bright, brave, impossible human who'd accidentally texted her way into his existence, and made a choice. "Yes." Maya laughed. It was a startled, disbelieving sound. Then she stopped, studying his expression. "Wait, you're serious?" "Completely serious." "Prove it." "Here? In public?" "No one's paying attention. Do something vampire-y." Caspian glanced around. The other patrons were absorbed in their own worlds. The waitress was at the far end of the counter. With supernatural speed, just a fraction of what he was capable of, just enough to be noticeable, he moved Maya's coffee cup from one side of the table to the other. To human eyes, it would have looked like a blur. Maya gasped. Holy shit. Do it again. He moved her fork this time, faster, the motion barely perceptible. Oh my God. Oh my God. Vampires are real. You're a vampire. I've been texting a vampire for 3 months. She was breathing quickly, her eyes wide, but she didn't look afraid so much as shocked. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. But she looked at him, really looked at him. You're the person who's listened to me complain about Brad from accounting for 3 months. You've sent me poetry recommendations. You asked about my creative writing. You made me feel less alone. You made me feel less alone too. For 891 years, I've been isolated in ways that are difficult to explain. Then you accidentally texted me about laundry and Brad, and suddenly I had a reason to exist beyond duty and obligation. You gave me something to look forward to. You made immortality feel like a gift instead of a curse. 891 years. Maya leaned back against the booth. So when you said your last relationship ended in 1823, I was being literal. Her name was Catherine. She was human. She died of tuberculosis at age 42, while I remained exactly as I was the day we met. That's horrible. I'm so sorry. It was a long time ago, but it's why I swore I would never pursue another human. The pain of watching someone I loved age and die while I stayed frozen. I didn't want to endure that again. And yet here you are. Here I am. Because apparently I'm willing to risk that pain for the chance to know you, which is either very brave or very foolish. Maya picked up her coffee, took a sip, set it down carefully. Okay, I'm processing. Vampires are real. You're 891 years old. You can't go in sunlight. You drink blood. You've been alive since, math, 1134? Correct. I was turned during the Crusades. The actual Crusades, the medieval ones. She laughed again, a slightly hysterical edge to it. This is the most insane thing that's ever happened to me. Okay, questions. How do you drink blood without, killing people? Blood banks. Willing donors who are compensated. I run several medical facilities that supply the vampire population ethically. We don't kill. That's forbidden by our laws, and unnecessary with modern resources. There are vampire laws? Extensive ones. I help enforce them. I'm a territorial ruler. I oversee vampire populations across several Western states. Think of it like regional governance. You're a vampire king? That's the traditional title, yes, though it's more administrative than it sounds. Maya stared at him. I've been casually texting with vampire royalty for 3 months. About Brad from accounting. And memes. To be fair, you had no way of knowing. And I genuinely didn't understand most of those memes. She laughed, a real laugh this time, and Caspian felt something in his chest unclench. She was laughing. She wasn't running. She was still sitting across from him, processing, but not fleeing. Okay, Maya said. Okay, so, the guy I've been texting is an ancient vampire king who owns a Gothic estate and reads Chaucer by candlelight because he literally bought it when it was first published. That's actually kind of on brand for you now that I think about it. You've been dropping hints this whole time. Not intentionally. I was trying to appear human. Well, you failed adorably. The 1823 comment should have clued me in. She studied his face. So what now? Where do we go from here? That depends entirely on you, Maya. If this is too much, and I would completely understand if it is, I can arrange for you to forget we ever met. I have the ability to compel memory alteration. You wouldn't remember any of this. You'd be safe, normal, free to live your life without the complications of my world. Stop. I don't want to forget. This is insane and impossible and probably the worst idea ever, but I don't want to forget you. There's something else you should know. A member of my council, another vampire, tried to interfere. He was the one who sent you those messages, trying to scare you away. He believes relationships between vampires and humans are too dangerous, too complicated. He wanted to protect me by ending this before it went further. Is he wrong? Caspian met her eyes. No, he's not wrong. If we pursue this, whatever this is between us, you'd be entering a dangerous world. Vampire politics can be brutal. Territorial disputes, rival factions, the constant risk of exposure, and, eventually you would age, while I remain frozen. You'd have to decide if you want mortality or eternity. If you wanted to be turned, it would require council approval, genetic testing, years of preparation. And if you chose to remain human, I would watch you grow old and die while I continued on. There's no version of this that doesn't involve pain. Maya was quiet for a long moment, her coffee cooling in front of her. Can I ask you something? And I want you to be completely honest. Always. Do you have feelings for me? Real feelings? Caspian didn't hesitate. Yes. I'm in love with you, Maya. Completely, impossibly, inappropriately in love with you. You're the first person in centuries who's made me laugh, made me think, made me feel like existence has purpose beyond obligation. You see me, not my position, not my power, just me. And I don't want to lose that. I have feelings for you too, Maya said quietly. Which is crazy, because we've never met in person until tonight, but it's true. These 3 months have been the best part of my days. Texting you, sharing things with you, feeling like someone actually understands me. But Caspian, this is a lot. I need time to process, to think about what this means. Of course, take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. Literally, you're immortal. Technically correct. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything hanging between them. Finally, Maya reached across the table and took his hand. His skin was cool, no circulation, no heartbeat, but she didn't pull away. I'm not running, she said. I'm not forgetting. I need a few days to wrap my head around the fact that vampires are real, and I'm apparently dating one. We're dating? Aren't we? I mean, isn't that what this is? Caspian smiled, genuine and unguarded for the first time in decades. I would very much like that, yes. They stayed at the diner until 4 a.m., talking about vampire lore and human misconceptions and how his existence actually worked. Maya asked 100 questions. Caspian answered every one honestly, watching her process, adapt, accept. When they finally left, standing in the parking lot as dawn approached, Maya looked up at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. I should go. You need to get home before sunrise. Yes, sunlight is actually lethal, not just uncomfortable. I have about an hour before it becomes dangerous. That's terrifying. It's simply a fact of my existence. Maya stepped closer, rising on her toes, and kissed him. It was brief, soft, perfect. Her lips warm against his cool ones, her heartbeat audible to his enhanced hearing, her scent filling his senses. When she pulled back, she was smiling. Text me when you get home safe, even though you're an immortal vampire king who's probably survived like 1,000 battles. 892, but who's counting? And I will. He watched her drive away, standing in the parking lot until her taillights disappeared, feeling something he'd thought was lost forever. Hope. 2 weeks passed in silence. Maya didn't text, didn't call, didn't respond to the one careful message Caspian sent asking if she was all right. He told himself this was expected, reasonable, exactly what he deserved for dragging a human into his complicated existence. He attended council meetings with perfect composure, managed territorial disputes, pretended that he wasn't checking his phone every 30 seconds like a lovesick teenager. Marcus found him in the library on the 14th night, staring at his phone with an expression of quiet devastation. "Sire, perhaps it's time to accept." The phone buzzed. "Hey, wrong number, guy. You awake?" Caspian's response was immediate, his hands trembling slightly. "Always. Are you all right? Can we meet? Same place?" "Of course. When?" "Now, if you're free." "I'll be there in 20 minutes. He drove too fast, breaking several traffic laws, arriving at Mel's diner in 15 minutes to find Maya already sitting in their booth. She looked tired, like she hadn't been sleeping well, but when she saw him, her expression softened into something that made his dead heart ache. He slid into the booth across from her. "I was worried about you." "I know. I'm sorry. I needed time to think, to process. I talked to my therapist, didn't mention the vampire part, obviously, just said I met someone complicated who comes with a lot of baggage. She asked me if you make me happy." "And?" "You do. Texting you is the best part of my day. You listen, you care, you remember things I tell you. You make me laugh with your old-fashioned way of texting and your complete confusion about meme culture. You're kind and thoughtful and genuine. The fact that you're also an 891-year-old vampire king is just bonus weirdness. But I need ground rules if we're doing this. Real rules, not just hoping it works out." "Name them." Maya pulled out her phone, showing him a list she'd clearly spent days compiling. 1. Never compel me. Ever. Even if you think it's for my own good. I need to know my choices are my own and my memories are real. Agreed. I would never take that from you. 2. I need time before deciding about turning. Like, years. I want to live my human life first. I want to accomplish things, experience things, make sure this is what I want before I commit to eternity. I would never pressure you. And Maya, you should know, turning isn't guaranteed. It requires council approval, genetic testing, psychological evaluation. There's only about a 40% success rate. It's dangerous. You could die in the transition. That's horrifying. It's the reality, which is why it's never entered casually. If and when you decide you want that, we'd go through years of preparation first. Okay. 3. I keep my job, my friends, my life. I'm not becoming some isolated vampire queen locked in a gothic mansion. I like my life. I want to keep living it. I would never ask you to give up who you are. Your independence is part of what I love about you. 4. You have to teach me about your world slowly. No overwhelming me with vampire politics and territorial disputes and whatever else. Small doses. Of course, we'll go at your pace. And 5, you have to learn to use emojis properly. Your texts are like reading Victorian letters, and while it's charming, you need to at least understand what a fire emoji means. Caspian smiled. That one might be the most challenging, but I'll try. So we're doing this? Actually dating? Human woman and vampire king? If you're willing to accept the complications, yes. I want to be with you, Maya. However that works, whatever that looks like. She reached across the table and took his hand. I'm willing. I'm scared. And this is probably insane, but I'm willing. The next 6 months unfolded like a dream. Maya shifted her entire schedule to nocturnal hours, working remotely for her social media job, sleeping during the day, living at night. She met Marcus first, the chief of security who looked at her with obvious skepticism, before grudgingly admitting she seemed reasonable for a human. Then Lady Morgana, who swept Maya into an unexpected friendship, delighting in teaching her vampire etiquette and history, while also gossiping about council drama like they were discussing reality TV. Lord Silas was formally censured by the council for his interference, required to issue an official apology that he delivered through gritted teeth. Caspian watched with satisfaction, though he understood Silas's concern, even if he couldn't forgive the method. Maya kept her human life, her job, her friends, her apartment, but spent most nights at Caspian's estate, curled up in his library reading while he worked, joining him for late-night walks through the grounds, learning about the vampire world piece by piece. Their texts continued. "How was your council meeting?" "Tedious. Silas remains insufferable." "How was your work presentation?" "Killed it." "I don't understand why you've sent me fire symbols. Is there an emergency?" "OMG, no, babe. It means I did great." "Ah, modern vernacular remains confusing. Congratulations on your success. Did you just use a heart emoji?" Marcus suggested it was appropriate for expressing affection. "I love you." "I love you too, even if I don't fully understand emojis." She met more of his world, vampire-owned businesses, the elaborate network of support systems that kept their existence secret, the careful balance between living in human society and maintaining their separate reality. She learned that vampires could cry, could love, could feel deeply despite their physical differences from humans. She learned that Caspian's reputation as a fair but firm ruler was well earned, that he genuinely cared about the people under his governance, that leadership was a burden he carried with grace. And Caspian learned about her world, social media algorithms and brand strategies, her creative writing ambitions, her difficult relationship with her parents, who didn't understand her nocturnal nature, her fierce loyalty to her friends. He attended virtual meetings with her, sitting just off camera, watching her navigate the human professional world with competence and creativity. He read every piece of creative writing she shared, offering thoughtful feedback from someone who'd read literally centuries of literature. 2 years into their relationship, on the anniversary of their first in-person meeting, Caspian took her back to Mel's diner. Same booth, same midnight timing, but everything different now. Maya knew his world, he knew hers. They'd built something real, something lasting, something that defied the complications and dangers everyone had warned them about. Caspian was nervous, something Maya found endlessly amusing, this ancient vampire fidgeting with his coffee cup. "Okay, what's going on? You've been weird all night." "Weird how?" "You keep checking your pocket. You've adjusted your position like 6 times. You're nervous. I can tell when you're nervous now, which feels like a significant relationship milestone." Caspian took a breath he didn't need. 2 years ago, you walked into this diner prepared to pepper spray me if I turned out to be a serial killer. You're technically a serial something. You've killed a lot of people over 900 years. Fair point. But Maya, you changed everything. You made immortality feel like a gift rather than a curse. You reminded me how to laugh, how to feel, how to want to exist beyond mere survival. You challenged my thinking, shared your dreams with me, treated me like a person instead of a position. He produced a ring, a deep blue sapphire surrounded by diamonds, antique and beautiful, the band engraved with intricate medieval patterns. "This belonged to my mother in 1122. It's the only thing I have from my human life. I've kept it for 891 years, never imagining I'd have a reason to give it to someone. But I want you to have it, Maya. I want you to marry me. However long your life is, whether you choose mortality or eternity, I want every moment of it. I want to build a life with you. I want late-night texts and terrible puns and your confusion about why I don't understand TikTok. I want everything." Maya was crying, tears streaming down her face in a way that made Caspian panic slightly before he realized she was smiling. "You're proposing in the same place you told me you were a vampire?" It felt appropriate. This is where our real story began. "Yes, Obviously, yes, but I have a condition. Anything. When we get married, you're writing your own vows. No Googling Victorian poetry. Your actual feelings in your actual words. That's terrifying. You fought in wars, ruled kingdoms, survived 900 years. You can write wedding vows. With you, I can do anything. They married 6 months later in a private ceremony at the estate, officiated by Lady Morgana and attended by the carefully selected members of both their worlds who knew the truth. Maya wore a vintage dress that looked like it belonged in a Gothic romance. Caspian wore a tailored suit and managed to write vows that made everyone cry, including several vampires who claimed they hadn't cried in centuries. Maya, he said, standing before her at midnight in his library, surrounded by first editions and candles. You are the unexpected text message that changed my existence. You are the reason I remember how to hope. You are proof that even after 891 years, the universe can still surprise me. I promise to love you every night for as long as we have, whether that's 50 years or 5,000. I promise to respect your choices, your independence, your humanity. I promise to learn emoji usage if it kills me, which technically it can't, but the sentiment stands. You make me want to be better than I am. You make immortality feel like it has purpose. I love you, completely and eternally. Maya's vows were equally devastating, talking about finding connection in darkness, about accepting all of someone, including the complicated parts, about choosing love even when it's impractical and dangerous, and requires adjusting your entire sleep schedule. The next 3 years were the happiest of Maya's human life. She published 2 novels, Gothic romances with suspiciously accurate vampire details that became unexpected bestsellers. She maintained her friendships, carefully explaining her nocturnal schedule as a quirk rather than a supernatural necessity. She traveled the world with Caspian, always at night, seeing cities in darkness, experiencing cultures through their nightlife, building memories that felt both ordinary and magical. She met more vampires, learned more politics, became unexpectedly good at navigating territorial disputes with her human perspective and diplomatic skills. The vampire community grudgingly accepted her, this human who'd somehow earned the ancient king's love and respect. Some even came to genuinely like her, appreciating her humor and directness, and complete inability to be intimidated by creatures that could kill her in seconds. And slowly, carefully, she started thinking about forever. On her 34th birthday, 5 years into their marriage, Maya and Caspian sat on the rooftop of his estate, overlooking the city lights at 2:47 a.m., the exact time she'd first accidentally texted him 7 years ago. "I'm ready," she said quietly. Caspian knew immediately what she meant. They'd discussed it countless times over the years, the theoretical possibility, the medical requirements, the risks. "Are you certain? There's no reversing this, Maya. You'll lose the daylight, the warmth of the sun, the ability to have children, the simple pleasure of human food. I'll gain eternity with you. I'll gain the time to write infinite books. I'll gain a family in Morgana and Marcus and the others. I'll gain the ability to finally beat you at chess after 200 years of practice." That's optimistic. "Turn me, Caspian. Make me yours forever." The process took months of preparation. Medical testing to ensure she could survive the transformation, psychological evaluation to confirm she understood what she was choosing, council approval, granted after surprisingly little debate. Apparently even Silas had grown fond of her, in his grudging way. They scheduled the turning for a significant date, 7 years to the day after she'd first texted him by accident. The transformation itself was ancient ritual and modern medicine combined. Caspian turned her in the same library where they'd had their first video call, surrounded by books and candles and the people who'd become their family. The process was painful. 3 days of Maya's body dying and being reborn as something new, something immortal. Caspian never left her side, holding her hand through the worst of it, whispering encouragements and promises and love through her screams and silence. On the 3rd day, Maya opened her eyes as a vampire. The first thing she saw was Caspian's face, and the first thing she felt was the overwhelming clarity of her new senses. She could hear the absence of his heartbeat, could smell the century-old leather of the books around them, could see in the darkness with perfect precision. "How do you feel?" Caspian asked, his voice raw with 3 days of worry. "Everything is so clear, so sharp. I can hear your not heartbeat. I can smell ancient books and candle wax and something else, something that must be other vampires. This is so weird." She sat up slowly, testing her new strength. "Am I going to accidentally break things now?" "For a few weeks, probably. You'll adjust." "How long was I out?" 3 days. The transformation was successful. You're immortal now, Maya, forever." She looked at him, this man she'd loved for 7 years. This vampire who'd been patient and kind and willing to risk everything for her, and smiled. Forever sounds good. They spent the next months teaching her how to be a vampire, how to feed ethically from blood banks, how to control her new strength, how to navigate vampire society as an equal rather than a human guest. Maya discovered she had a particular talent for vampire diplomacy, her human experience giving her unique perspective on managing the intersection between their world and the mortal one. 10 years after her transformation, 20 years after that first accidental text, Maya and Caspian sat in their favorite spot on the estate rooftop at 2:47 a.m., a tradition they'd maintained through everything. Maya appeared 34 forever, Caspian still looked 29, and between them stretched the promise of eternity. Maya's phone buzzed. She still carried it, still used it, though most of her human contacts had naturally drifted away over the years. She checked it and laughed. "What is it?" Caspian asked. "Someone just texted me by accident." "Wrong number. They're asking about a work project." She showed him the message, grinning. "Should I respond? I mean, look where responding to a wrong number got me." Caspian read the message, then looked at his wife. Brilliant. Immortal. Eternally his. "Respond. You never know where a simple text might lead." Maya typed, "I think you have the wrong number, but I hope your project goes well." She set down the phone and leaned against Caspian, his arm wrapping around her with the casual intimacy of 2 decades together. "Best wrong number ever," Maya said. "Best accident in 900 years, Caspian replied. They sat in comfortable silence, immortal and together, as the city lights glowed beneath them and eternity stretched ahead. All because of a text message about Brad from accounting and laundry at 2:47 a.m. Maya had been looking for connection in the darkness, and she'd found it in the most unexpected way possible. She'd found love with a vampire king who didn't understand memes but understood her. She'd found home in the night she'd always preferred. She'd found forever with someone who made immortality feel like a gift. And somewhere in the city below, another person was probably sending another wrong number text, reaching out into the void, hoping for connection, never knowing where that simple mistake might lead them. Maya smiled, remembering her own accidental message, remembering Caspian's careful, formal response, remembering how terrified and excited and hopeful she'd been at that first meeting. "I love you," she said, not for the first time, and not for the last time, but for one of infinite times they'd have together. "I love you too," Caspian replied, pulling her closer. "Even though you still send me memes I don't understand." "You're getting better. You only had to ask about 2 of them last week." "Progress. In another century I might actually understand TikTok." "Let's not get crazy. Some things are beyond even vampire comprehension." They laughed together, and the sound echoed across the grounds of the estate, across the centuries Caspian had endured alone, across the future they'd build together. Forever had seemed like such a lonely prospect once. Now it felt like barely enough time. The city lights glowed, the stars wheeled overhead, and two vampires sat together in the darkness they both loved, holding hands, sharing silence, existing in the perfect contentment of being understood, being loved, being home. All because Maya Park had typed the wrong number at 2:47 a.m. All because Caspian Thorne had decided to respond. All because sometimes the best love stories start with a simple mistake and a willingness to see where it leads. And they lived, if not happily ever after in the traditional sense, then as happily as immortal beings could manage, which turned out to be pretty damn happy after all.